The most dangerous place you'll ever step into isn't a dark alley, a battlefield, or a storm at sea. It's a silent space between your own thoughts, the battlefield inside your mind. That's where wars no one else can see are fought daily. You wake up, and before you even touch your phone, it begins. The quiet hum of self-criticism, the echoes of yesterday's mistakes, the worries about tomorrow. It's strange, isn't it? Nothing bad has actually happened, yet your heart races, your chest tightens, and your thoughts spiral into invisible chaos. You ask yourself, why do I do this to myself? But the answer hides somewhere deep inside the noise. You replay conversations, searching for what you said wrong. You remember moments that should have faded by now, but still sting like open wounds. Someone once said, time heals everything. But they never mention how the mind reopens the wound every time it feels alone. Maybe you've been there, lying awake at night, thinking of that breakup you should have moved past, or that failure you still can't forgive yourself for. The mind whispers, what's wrong with me? But beneath the question is something far more haunting. It doesn't know how to stop. Science has a name for this torment. It's called the default mode network, the brain's autopilot of thought. When you're not focused on anything specific, it switches on, looping through memories, fears, and imagined scenarios. It's meant to help you reflect, plan, learn from the past. But left unchecked, it becomes a torture chamber, replaying the same scenes until you start believing the pain is who you are. It's not that you're broken. It's that your brain is doing its job just too well. It's trying to keep you safe from a danger that no longer exists. Imagine a student staring at their exam paper, frozen. The fear isn't about the test itself. It's about what failure means. Somewhere in their past, their mind linked failure with rejection with pain. So now, even before a question is answered, the brain floods a body with panic. Try to avoid that hurt again. Or think of someone scrolling through old photos of a lost love, their heart aching, their mind whispering, what if I had done things differently? The pain feels fresh, though the moment is long gone. That's the mind's cruel trick. It confuses memory with threat. It relives old pain, thinking it's preventing future pain. The irony is devastating. The same mechanism that once kept our ancestors alive now keeps us emotionally imprisoned. The brain evolved to scan for danger, but in the modern world, where the threats are not lions or cliffs but rejection and regret, it doesn't know when to stop protecting. So it attacks shadows, imagined failures, invisible judgments, silent fears. You start to believe your thoughts are your enemies, when in truth, they're overzealous guards standing at the wrong door. In the middle of the chaos, something shifts. It happens in a quiet moment, maybe after tears, maybe after exhaustion. You realize this endless overthinking isn't madness. It's programming, a survival code written long ago, still running even when the war is over. You see that the mind doesn't want to hurt you. It wants to keep you safe. Pain to it is a warning sign, a shield. When it makes you relive that breakup, it's not punishing you. It's reminding you, don't get hurt like that again. When it fills you with anxiety before risk, it's not cruelty, it's caution. The mind mistakes pain for protection. And suddenly, the chaos starts to make sense. Every self-doubt, every mental replay, every moment of invisible suffering, all of it traces back to one truth. Your mind learned that pain equals safety. It's been trying to protect you in the only way it knows how. But protection built on fear is still a cage. The brain can't tell the difference between a real threat and a remembered one unless you teach it. That's where awareness becomes liberation. Not fighting your thoughts, but understanding them. You begin to see the patterns. The mind flares up when you take a risk, because risk once brought pain. It spirals when you lose someone, because loss once meant danger. Every anxious thought, every overreaction, every sleepless night. It's all the mind's attempt to build armor out of memories. But armor that never comes off soon becomes a prison. So the question changes. It's no longer, why do I do this to myself? But what is my mind trying to protect me from? And in that question lies power. Because once you understand what it's guarding, you can choose what to free. The mind isn't your enemy. It's a wounded soldier that's been fighting an old war. It's time to bring it home. But here's the haunting twist. If your mind is trying to protect you, why does it feel like it's destroying you? Your brain doesn't know the difference between pain that helps and pain that harms. To it, all pain is information, a signal that something matters, something needs attention. But somewhere along the way, that system got hijacked. What began as a survival mechanism slowly turned into a loop where the mind started confusing familiar pain with safety. It's not because we're weak or broken. It's because our brains learn to associate predictability, even if painful, with control. We all do it in different ways. Some replay arguments that ended years ago. Some live every day bracing for the next disappointment. And some, like Emma, carry invisible armor made of worry. Emma's life looks fine from the outside. A steady job, a clean apartment, friends who think she's strong. But inside, her mind never rests. She replays conversations after meetings, second-guesses every decision, and prepares for rejection before it even arrives. Her brain has learned one rule. If she can predict the pain, maybe she can prevent it. So she keeps thinking, worrying, preparing. It feels responsible until it starts to hurt. Neuroscientists call this neuroplastic conditioning, the brain's ability to reinforce whatever it repeats. Every thought leaves a trace, like footsteps on soft ground. Repeat it often enough, and it becomes a path the brain walks automatically. Psychologist Judson Brewer once described it simply: the brain learns habits not because they're good, but because they're familiar. And so when Emma worries, she feels a small sense of control. Her body tightens, but her brain releases a chemical reward, not pleasure, but predictability. That's how pain becomes a habit. We do this all the time without noticing. Every time we replay a mistake, we strengthen the neural circuit that connects safety with suffering. Each time we overthink, we teach the brain that worry equals preparation. And in doing so, we reward it for hurting us. That's the paradox. The more we hurt, the safer we feel. Because pain, at least, is something we understand. The unknown is far more terrifying. Emma doesn't know any of this. She just feels tired of the constant noise in her head, tired of waiting for the day her thoughts go quiet. But when silence comes, it feels wrong, like something's missing. So her mind fills the space again with anxious whats. It's not comfort she's craving, it's familiarity. Her nervous system has mistaken chaos for normalcy. The human brain would rather live in predictable pain than face unpredictable peace. Inside Emma's head, the inner dialogue never stops. If I think about it more, maybe I'll understand what went wrong. If I worry enough, maybe I won't be surprised when it happens again. These thoughts feel protective, but they're the brain's version of superstition, rituals to keep the unknown away. And like any ritual, they're hard to break, because each repetition rewires the emotional circuitry a little deeper. It's tragic and beautiful at the same time. Pain, after all, is the brain's first language. It's how we learn boundaries, how we recognize danger. But when that pain becomes constant, the message gets lost. What was once a warning turns into background noise, and we stop asking what it's trying to tell us. Then comes a turning point. The realization that emotional pain can be just as habitual as biting your nails or scrolling your phone. It's an addiction, not to suffering itself, but to certainty. The mind craves patterns, and pain provides one. When something hurts in a familiar way, it feels predictable, and predictability feels safe. That's why so many of us stay in toxic relationships, in jobs that drain us, or in self-critical loops that destroy our peace. We don't choose misery. We choose what we understand. A neuroscientist once explained it this way: the brain is a prediction machine. It would rather be right and miserable than wrong and uncertain. That's the essence of the loop. We predict pain to avoid surprise. But in doing so, we destroy the possibility of joy. Emma starts to notice it one day, the way her mind braces for disappointment even during good moments. When she gets praise at work, she immediately thinks, what if I can't do it again? When someone shows her affection, she quietly prepares for the day they'll leave. It's not negativity. It's survival dressed as realism. By the time she realizes it, the pattern feels unbreakable. But that awareness, that moment of seeing the loop, is the first crack in the armor. Because the truth is, The mind can only keep repeating pain as long as it stays unobserved. The moment you see it clearly, you begin to step outside it. You start to notice that not every ache needs attention. Not every thought deserves belief. The mind isn't addicted to pain because it enjoys it. It's addicted to the certainty that pain brings. Happiness, after all, is fragile, unpredictable. But pain? Pain is reliable. It always shows up, always reminds you who you are, always fills the silence. And so, we cling to it, not because we love it, but because we fear what comes after it. Every time you're about to grow, your mind whispers, "Don't." It happens in the quiet before a breakthrough. When you finally decide to start the business, take the risk, end the cycle, that voice doesn't scream. It's soft, almost reasonable. You're not ready. What if it doesn't work? What if you make things worse? And in that moment, your own potential feels dangerous. So you stop, you scroll, you delay, you tell yourself you'll try again tomorrow. But tomorrow never feels safer, does it? I've done it too. Every dream I've abandoned felt logical at the time. Every chance I didn't take came wrapped in excuses that sounded responsible. We call procrastination perfectionism, fear of failure. But at its core, it's something much deeper. It's protection. The mind doesn't see growth the way we do. To us, it's possibility. To it, it's threat. There's a story about a painter named Michael. He spent years sketching in private, telling everyone he was waiting for the right moment to exhibit his work. Each time he got close, he found a reason to stop. The lighting wasn't right. The pieces weren't perfect. The timing was wrong. But late at night, when no one was watching, he'd stare at his unfinished canvases and whisper, "Why can't I just do it?" Deep down, he wasn't afraid of failure. He was afraid of losing the version of himself who dreamed of success but never risked it. Because dreaming feels safe. Becoming someone new does not. Psychologists describe this as the identity defense mechanism, the brain's way of keeping us consistent with who we believe we are. Every action you take has to align with your self-image. If your subconscious believes you're not the type to succeed, it will sabotage anything that threatens that belief. You'll miss deadlines, ruin opportunities, push people away, not because you hate success, but because success feels unfamiliar. That's why self-sabotage feels almost comfortable. You can sense the tension building, that internal tug-of-war between what you want and what you've always known. The mind says, "Stay here. At least we understand this pain." Growth demands uncertainty, and uncertainty feels like danger. It's not laziness. It's protection. The same mental system that once kept you from physical harm now keeps you from emotional change. The inner dialogue is relentless. You're not ready. But what if I am? You'll embarrass yourself. But what if I succeed? The conversation loops until exhaustion wins. That's when the mind feels victorious. It got you to retreat back into safety. You feel guilt for giving up, shame for not trying harder. But beneath that shame, the brain feels relief. It's accomplished its mission, to protect you from the unknown. Michael once described his fear perfectly. "I realized I wasn't scared of people rejecting my art. I was scared of not recognizing myself if they didn't." That's the paradox of transformation. Every step toward growth requires killing a part of who you were. The mind grieves that loss, even if it's a good one. So it resists, it distracts. It convinces you that comfort is clarity and hesitation is wisdom. But it's not. It's survival instinct masquerading as reason. We often mistake this self-sabotage for weakness, but it's actually proof of how deeply the brain values stability. It doesn't care if you're happy. It cares if you're consistent. Happiness is optional. Familiarity is essential. So, when your actions threaten to rewrite the story you've always told yourself, the mind deploys fear like a defense system. That sudden fatigue before you take a risk, that distraction when things start going well, that urge to quit right before the finish line, those aren't coincidences. They're the brain's way of restoring equilibrium. Think of it like emotional muscle memory. If you spent years expecting disappointment, success feels like foreign territory. The brain doesn't know how to map it, so it sends distress signals. It tries to pull you back into the terrain it understands. even if that terrain is filled with pain. We mistake that tension for a sign to stop, when really, it's a sign that change is happening. At the turning point, something clicks. Failure isn't the enemy. It's familiar safety. When we fail, we confirm what we already believe about ourselves. See, I knew I couldn't do it. There's strange comfort in that certainty. But when we succeed, when we push past a limit, we have to redefine who we are. And that, to the brain, is terrifying, because identity feels like survival. Michael finally did showcase his art. The night before, he nearly backed out again, pacing his apartment with trembling hands. His thoughts whispered, "What if they don't like it?" But another voice rose beneath it, quieter, stronger. What if they do? That was the battle, not between success and failure, but between safety and evolution. When the applause came, he didn't feel triumph. He felt loss. The old version of himself, the one who never believed he could, was gone. Self-sabotage isn't a flaw. It's a misunderstanding. Your brain thinking it's saving you from a threat that doesn't exist anymore. The more you grow, the louder the resistance becomes. Not because you're weak, but because you're stepping into territory your mind hasn't learned to feel safe in yet. That voice that says don't is not your enemy. It's your guardian, confused by change. And when you realize that, everything shifts. You stop fighting the fear and start understanding it. You recognize the trembling not as a warning, but as a sign of rebirth. Because your mind doesn't fear failure. It fears becoming someone new. Control feels like safety until it becomes your cage. At first, it feels empowering. The lists, the plans, the late-night mental rehearsals of what could go wrong. You tell yourself that if you think through every possibility, nothing will surprise you. That's the illusion that preparation equals peace. But the truth is, what you call control is often fear wearing logic's mask. You don't overthink because you want to be perfect. You overthink because you're terrified of the unknown. The mind clings to control the way a drowning person clings to a piece of driftwood, not because it's comfortable, but because it feels like survival. Every thought becomes a rescue attempt. If I just think it through one more time, you tell yourself, maybe I can prevent it from going wrong. But it never stops, does it? The more you try to predict, the more possibilities appear, each one demanding attention. The brain mistakes thinking for safety, but in truth, it's just spinning the wheel faster. Overthinking is not preparation. It's panic in disguise. The brain believes that if it can control the outcome, it can control the pain. That's the equation it was built on. Anticipate equals avoid suffering. But life doesn't work like that. You can anticipate 1,000 scenarios, and reality will still write its own story. The people who seem calm in chaos aren't the ones who plan for everything. They're the ones who made peace with not knowing. There's a story psychologists often share about pilots in training. The ones who try to control every tiny movement of the aircraft, tightening their grip, overcorrecting, panicking at turbulence, are the ones who struggle most. The moment they learn to loosen their hands, to trust the instruments, to let the plane fly, that's when control becomes mastery. The same is true in life. The tighter we grip, the shakier the ride becomes. But letting go feels like death to the anxious mind. It goes against every instinct evolution gave us. The part of your brain responsible for fear, the amygdala, is wired to keep you safe by predicting danger. It rewards you with a tiny hit of relief every time you overthink, even though the relief never lasts. That's why control feels addictive. It tricks you into believing you're preventing pain, while quietly creating it. Some of the most successful people in the world have confessed to this same trap. A CEO once admitted that he checked his emails compulsively through the night, terrified of missing crisis. I called it responsibility, he said, but it was really fear of losing control. When he finally stopped, when he forced himself to let things unfold without constant supervision, he realized how little control he ever had, and how much peace he had been postponing. The turning point comes when you finally understand that control is resistance to uncertainty, and uncertainty is where life actually happens. Every moment of joy, every act of love, every discovery or growth, they all begin in the unknown. The mind fights it because the unknown can hurt. But what it doesn't see is that control can hurt just as deeply, quietly, endlessly, through exhaustion and fear. It's in that quiet moment, maybe in the middle of another sleepless night, that you realize the futility of it all. You can't control who stays, who leaves, who loves you, or what tomorrow brings. You can only choose how you meet each moment. That's where freedom begins. It's not in prediction or precision, it's in presence. When you finally let go, something miraculous happens. The body relaxes, the breath softens, the mind unclenches. You stop rehearsing life and start living it. You stop waiting for certainty and start trusting your resilience instead. Because peace was never about control, it was about surrender. The world doesn't need your constant management. It just needs your presence. And that's the quiet truth the anxious mind doesn't want to hear. Control was never safety. It was self-imposed captivity. You were never meant to hold the whole world together. Just your awareness in it. So, if control is a prison, what does freedom look like? Overthinking isn't thinking too much. It's feeling too little. You convince yourself you're solving something, dissecting a problem, preparing for a possibility. But beneath all that mental noise lies a silence you've been avoiding. It's not the thoughts that hurt you. It's what they're protecting you from feeling. That's the hidden architecture of overthinking, a fortress built not from logic, but from fear. You sit there, looping through scenarios that never happened, conversations that never ended, futures that never begin. It feels productive, like you're doing something, but you're not. You're circling the same emotional wound, too afraid to touch it directly. Because if you stop thinking, even for a second, the feelings waiting underneath might finally catch up to you. And that, more than anything, feels dangerous. What if I said the wrong thing? What if I'm not enough? What if I ruin it again? Each question feels rational, but it's not. It's emotional camouflage. Your mind has learned that by staying busy with thoughts, it can stay distant from pain. It's not solving the problem. It's avoiding it. The irony is brutal. The more you think, the less you feel, and the less you feel, the more you think. You get trapped in your own defense system, mistaking noise for safety. Psychologists describe this as cognitive avoidance, the brain's strategy for staying one step ahead of emotion. When something hurts, your rational mind takes over, analyzing, explaining, predicting. It's not intelligence gone wrong. It's sensitivity turned inward. People who overthink are often deeply intuitive. They just never learn how to trust their emotions without dissecting them first. And it makes sense. At some point you were taught, directly or quietly, that feelings are dangerous. Maybe you were told not to cry. Maybe your vulnerability was dismissed as weakness. So now, your mind translates emotion into logic, hoping to control what can't be controlled. You don't overthink because you're broken. You overthink because once upon a time, feeling deeply didn't feel safe. The loop is self-sustaining. Each time you analyze instead of feel, your brain gets rewarded with a small sense of relief. The illusion of understanding. It learns that staying in the head keeps the heart from hurting. But that's how emotional paralysis begins. Because while your thoughts spin endlessly, your feelings wait quietly in the corner, unprocessed, unseen, still alive. Your brain replays the past because it doesn't trust the future. It's not trying to torture you. It's trying to protect you. The replay is a rehearsal, the mind's attempt to predict pain before it happens. If I can relive what went wrong, it thinks, maybe I could prevent it next time. But the truth is, you can't outthink uncertainty. You can only meet it with presence. The mind doesn't realize that healing isn't logical, it's emotional. The turning point comes when you finally notice what's beneath the noise. One day, between two anxious thoughts, there's a pause, a brief silence. And in that silence, you catch a glimpse of what's really happening. Your overthinking isn't about the problem. It's about the feeling attached to it. Guilt, shame, fear, loss. The mind can't bear to face those directly, so it builds mazes of logic to run through instead. That's when you realize overthinking isn't a flaw in intelligence. It's a symptom of emotional avoidance. You start to see the rhythm of it, the way your mind accelerates when you're scared, the way your body tenses when you remember something unresolved, the way you use thoughts as shields, hoping to control feelings that were never meant to be controlled. That awareness doesn't fix everything, but it slows you down. It gives you space between the thought and the feeling. And in that space, healing begins. In that stillness, you start to notice sensations again. Your breath, your heartbeat, the way your body subtly responds to every memory and idea. You start realizing your thoughts aren't reality. They're reactions. They're stories your brain tells to make sense of emotions it doesn't know how to name. And when you see that clearly, something softens. The panic fades into understanding. Overthinking was never your enemy. It was your mind's way of holding your heart until you were ready to feel. But you're ready now, ready to step into the silence without fear, ready to let feelings flow through instead of running from them. The calm that follows isn't loud or dramatic. It's a quiet clarity, the kind that doesn't need answers right away. You begin to trust that not every question deserves a response, not every thought deserves attention. And for the first time, the noise in your head begins to lose its grip. Because once you see your thoughts clearly, they lose their power to lie. Chapter 6, the moment you break the pattern. Approximate 700 words. Freedom doesn't arrive in a grand moment. It happens in silence. It's not the explosion of clarity you imagined. No lightning strike, no cinematic breakthrough. Just a quiet moment, ordinary, almost forgettable, when your mind begins to speak in its usual way. And for the first time, you don't react. You hear the familiar whisper of panic, the gentle pull of old patterns, and you simply breathe. That's it. That's freedom. For so long, you believed healing would look dramatic, a single victory over the noise in your head. But it doesn't. It's smaller, softer. It's the subtle pause between reaction and awareness, when you finally see your thoughts not as orders, but as options. You've spent years trying to fix your mind, analyzing, correcting, forcing yourself to think better. But the real shift happens when you stop fighting, when you stop identifying with every fear that crosses your mind. Because the truth is, your thoughts were never the enemy. Your attachment to them was. You notice it the way you notice your breath. Something so natural, it was always there. The racing thoughts still appear, but now you can see through them. They're not reality anymore. They're echoes. Memories of an old self that tried to survive through control. I'm safe now. That whisper feels strange at first, fragile, almost unbelievable. But as you repeat it, something inside you loosens. You begin to feel what safety actually means, not as a concept, but as a sensation. Your shoulders drop. Your breath deepens. For the first time, you are not inside the storm. You are watching it from a distance. This is the moment the pattern breaks. Not because you forced it to, but because you've outgrown it. You don't stop overthinking. You outgrow the need to. Your mind still tries to help in the only way it knows, by analyzing, protecting, predicting. But now, instead of obeying, you observe. You see how every anxious thought carries the same signature. Fear disguised as logic. You recognize the pattern, and that recognition alone dissolves its power. You remember Emma, the creative soul who once sabotaged her own progress. Back then, she thought her chaos was proof she wasn't ready. Every time she felt joy, she'd pull back, waiting for something to go wrong. But now she's different. Her art isn't perfect, but it's hers. She paints, writes, creates, without the noise telling her she's not enough. Emma learned that growth isn't about never doubting again. It's about realizing doubt doesn't define you. She stopped negotiating with her fears and started listening to them. And in that listening, she found compassion, not for her success, but for her struggle. The turning point is subtle. When you realize that every self-destructive impulse, every overthought decision, every panic loop was never trying to harm you. It was your mind's attempt to protect you from change. You were never broken, just conditioned to believe that safety meant control. And now, sitting in the stillness of your own awareness, you understand. Control was never safety. Presence is. There's no grand finale. Just breath, stillness, warmth. You begin to move differently. Speak slower. Smile without rehearsing it. You stop needing certainty because you finally learn how to live with not knowing. That's peace, not perfection, but participation. You're no longer hiding behind thought. You're experiencing life as it unfolds, raw, unpredictable, real. The noise will return sometimes. The patterns might whisper again. But you'll meet them with something new, a gentle curiosity. You'll see that even your pain has softened, losing its sharp edges the moment you stop resisting it. You don't need to silence the mind. You just need to stop believing everything it says. And so, you sit quietly, the same world around you, the same mind within you, but everything feels different. The war has ended not with victory, but with understanding. Your thoughts still speak. Your fears still echo, but they no longer dictate. You've learned the secret the mind never expected you to discover. That peace isn't the absence of noise. It's the decision to listen differently. The mind will always speak, but now you know how to listen. Chapter 7. The Shift That Sets You Free. Approximate 750 words. You can't silence your mind, but you can teach it peace. For most of your life, you've tried to win against the noise, against the thoughts that never stop, against the chaos that blooms in quiet rooms. You fought your own reflection, wrestled your past, and begged your mind to finally be still. But silence isn't victory. It's surrender, not to the pain, but to the understanding beneath it. Because the goal was never to shut your mind up. It was to help it breathe. Somewhere along this journey, you began to see it. The storm was never your enemy. It was your signal. Every anxious thought, every overanalyzed moment, every late-night spiral, they were your mind's way of saying, "I'm scared. Please hold me." You thought those moments meant you were broken, when really they were invitations to listen more deeply. You start to notice how gentle awareness changes everything. Thoughts still come, some heavy, some soft, but they pass through you differently now. They no longer stick, no longer pull you under. You've learned to see them for what they are: energy, memory, movement. You no longer need to control the tide. You've learned how to float. You don't win against your thoughts. You walk beside them. That realization comes quietly, like sunlight through blinds. The mind that once scared you now feels like a child learned to speak, clumsy, loud, but innocent in its intention. You see how much of your suffering was born from misunderstanding your own inner voice. Every fear was an unspoken need. Every doubt was a cry for reassurance. Every self-sabotage was your heart trying to avoid another heartbreak. Freedom, you realize, isn't about stopping the noise. It's about understanding its language. Emma reappears in your memory, sitting by her window, paintbrush in hand, her canvas half finished. Once, she would have stared at it in frustration, trapped in the thought that she wasn't good enough. But now, she paints without judgment. The strokes are imperfect, but alive. Her art no longer needs to be flawless. It just needs to exist. And the student, the one who feared failure, has learned to show up anyway. His trembling hands still shake before each exam, but now he whispers, "It's okay to be afraid." And in that permission, he finds power. These people, these reflections of you, have discovered what the mind was never taught. Peace is not control, it's compassion. At the heart of it all lies a quiet truth. You were never supposed to be fearless. Fear keeps you cautious, alert, alive. What destroys you isn't fear, but the belief that it means something's wrong. When you stop running from discomfort, it softens. When you listen to pain without judgment, it teaches. That's the shift, the one that sets you free. You begin to look back on every storm, every collapse, every sleepless night, and see them differently now. They weren't punishments. They were training grounds. They were the places where your awareness learned to expand, where you learned to witness without reacting, to breathe in the middle of uncertainty, to stand still even when the ground trembled. Freedom, you now see, isn't a finish line. It's a practice. It's in the pause before the reaction, the inhale before the apology, the forgiveness that arrives uninvited. You can feel it in your body, the quiet rhythm of a life that no longer demands perfection. You walk slower now. You speak with more intention. You listen not to respond, but to understand. The mind that once screamed has softened into a companion, a constant reminder of how far you've come. And maybe this is what peace really means. Not the absence of thought, but the harmony between awareness and emotion. The mind still speaks, but now you know the difference between noise and truth. You close your eyes. There's no need for grand declarations or affirmations, just a small, steady presence. You, alive in this moment, unburdened by the need to be anything else. You've stopped trying to escape your mind, and instead, you've made peace with it. The voices still visit, the old fears, the memories, the worries, but they no longer stay for long. You greet them like familiar guests and let them pass. And somewhere deep inside, a voice, your truest voice, whispers, "This is what freedom feels like." You smile, not because everything is perfect, but because it finally doesn't have to be. If this message found you at the right time, don't forget to share it with the one who's still fighting their own mind.